Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of Polite Society News. My name is Paul Lathrop. I am the founder of the Polite Society podcast, also a founding member of the Self Defense Radio Network. Joining me for today's broadcast, good friend, and why is that not showing up? That could be it. There we go. Joining me for today's broadcast, good friend, longtime cohort in crime, Mike Piwowarski. Mike, excuse me. Mike, of course, is Arms Room Radio and The Rundown. And Mike, been a while since we talked on the air, man.
It has been. I think it's been since back before GRPC, so like a month ago, I think.
Well, yeah, both the Twins and the Mets were still alive. I mean, with the last time we talked.
Yeah, I mean, technically, I guess the Mets were still alive, but they kind of fell out of playoff contention in spring training.
Yeah, I'm happy to say the Twins won their first playoff series, and then they went to the divisional, and yeah, so next year, right?
I hear you. Well, we got to get rid of this stupid wild card thing. If we do that, we can get back to playing real baseball, but other than that, yeah, we look forward to next year.
All right, let's go ahead and get started tonight. Couple of stories that tickled my interest earlier today. First one, written by Dave Workman over at Liberty Park Press. The Guardian, actually, Everytown paid for the Guardian to do a poll of young people. And turns out that, much to the disappointment of the people over at Everytown, when they polled young people, they found that young people think if you have a firearm in the home, you're safer. Mike, I want to ask you, do you think this is this a polling error, or are we actually winning over the younger generation?
Well, I almost believe like they might have asked the question the wrong way. You know, rather than say something like, do deadly child-killing guns in the home make you feel more safe? They probably just asked, is a firearm properly secured in the home make you more safe? And it does. We know that. And I probably think it was just the way they asked it. Instead of going out there and spinning it, they asked an honest question, and they were not prepared for the answers.
Yeah, that reminds me, there's an old adage for attorneys: never ask a question you do not know the answer to. I think they did. They thought they knew the answer, and then when they got to the public, they found, well, maybe not.
Yeah, well, because you know their game. You know how they play it. They preface it with this, and in this circumstance or in this instance, and it was probably a flat out firearms in the home make it more secure. Well, yeah,
yeah. Getting social media. Still, I'm having issues. I'm totally switched over to the new computer. For those who've been following me recently, I'm totally switched over to the new computer. I'm still having a few issues getting social media hooked up, and I think we are there. I want to remind you, if you do want to comment, and if you want to comment anything Mike and I are talking about, we will go ahead and comment on your comment, and we'll have a conversation. Let me get. I want to get this one up. I think I'm gonna have to deal with this for the next several shows. I'm gonna get this comment up. No longer the bullet. No, and that's from My Take on the YouTube side. My Take. I used to open up the show by saying I'm the Deputy Director of New Media for the Second Amendment Foundation. I no longer am. SAF and I split ways amicably. You could say it was a mutual decision. And the bullet is something I created for SAF, for the Second Amendment Foundation. When I left, they retained the intellectual property and all the old rights for all the old episodes of The Bullet. They do not own the rights, never have known the rights, and cannot tell me what to do with Polite Society. So that is why this is now Polite Society News. And I forgot to mute my darn phone. What a rookie mistake on my part.
Tasers on stun, sir. I
Telling
didn't
you.
hear it.
Oh, I could have swore that would have been loud enough and close enough to the mic that it would have picked it up.
All
Let
good
me
here.
let me get this one up. Statistics taught me how to never believe anything without looking at the data. And Mike, that's what I mean. When you look at these surveys, really you've got to look at how the question was asked and what their polling sample was, what their it was their quite often a trick the other side will play when they're doing polling. They'll poll 70% Democrats. And then 25% Republicans and 5% independents. When in reality, it's the population is more is more closer to, 33, 33, 33.
Yeah. Their stuff is, the following people were polled at the Democratic National Headquarters.
Yes. Donna Brazil said.
Yeah.
All right, I gotta move this over here now that I got
Wasserman Schultz said.
Yeah, exactly. I just about got myself into trouble over on YouTube just now, but I'm gonna clamp that down and not say that out loud. Next story that I came across today, and this one is an interesting one out of the state of Florida. I would have thought myself this was not legal to do, but a lady in Florida was told, look, you can keep your guns or you can keep your husband. A judge, a guy was up for some felony charges, and as part of a plea bargain, he was going to have to not have access to any firearms. Well, it's real simple. A gun safe can do that. But this judge says to this lady, look, you have a choice, your guns or your husband. And you have to get rid of all your firearms or I'm going to send your husband to prison. And I'm very, very tightly synopsizing that. It's not exactly what he said. But that is the gist of what it came down to. Mike, I have my heart feels for this lady. Her husband obviously has some substance abuse problems, dealing from an injury. But to be forced to make that choice, give up your freedom, or your husband gives up his. That's a heck of a choice to have to make, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, it's part of that horrible story that we all hear about, right? It's a guy who is a incredible guy, incredible worker, saved some people's lives, rescuing them out of fires and burning buildings, and got hurt, and pain meds wore out, and so and he turned to street corner meds or drugs to try and make the ends meet, and couldn't do it. So he ended up down the wrong path. The judge is a DeSantis appointee. So I guess not everybody can bat 1,000, right, Paul? Every once in a while you pull a bad one in. The judge is Shannon McPhee, and that's the guy's name, Shannon there, and made the statement to the wife there, just like you said. He's being convicted. You have guns in the home. So here's your choice. Either he goes to jail or you got to give up the guns. And she was so stunned, Paul. If you remember what she said, she joked. She said, can I have a moment to think about it? She thought the judge was kidding.
Yeah.
And then the judge said no for reals and turned to the attorney, and they were like, well, obviously the freedom comes first. That's what we want. But you're absolutely right, Paul. This is illegal. The judge is not allowed to do this. The case law has already proven over and over again there. If you have two people living in the house, one that's a felon and one's not a felon, you're allowed to continue to possess your firearms if you're not a felon. Just because there's a felony conviction doesn't mean that person is no longer my brother, right? It's not like it's a bad roommate you're going to throw out. This is a relative. There's case law out there that says, okay, they got their room, I got my room, my guns are in my room, their gun, they have nothing in their room. That's the way it is. This judge is going to if not be corrected by tomorrow, this judge is going to be one of those spanked by DeSantis people.
I would hope so. I would hope so.
Yeah.
The and this goes all the way down to another reason I have a problem with this is look, just because you've got a felony does not necessarily mean that you should lose your right to keep and bear arms. This particular story, and I'm going to go ahead and grab the link, and I'll get it over into the comments section on Facebook and YouTube. But
I know where you're going, Paul. I agree with you. I absolutely agree with you. I think this guy's issue, though, is he's got more than one of those, restricting things against him. There's the felonies, right? Then there's the drugs. Then there's, so it's one of those. I want to do everything I can to help this guy as well, but at this point, I think we got to help her too. But
oh yeah,
I don't know how the judge. How does the judge look at this and say, I get there's plenty of judges out there, and where you were going there, Paul, and I'm not to interrupt you, that it's a non-violent felony. Why does the non-violent felon have to lose their rights to protect themselves? I get that. Where does the judge come up with that, and then come up with the because there's a son in the house also who legally owned firearms. So it was against the wife, against this. There's two other people that live in the house. And again, these are not dirtbag roommates you can throw out. These are their relatives, and it's Florida also. Even if they get divorced, they're probably still cousins.
I thought that was Alabama, but my mistake.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
Let me get this comment up. My take again. Faced with choosing between spouse and firearms, terrible choice. Hope he finds a good home.
Yeah, exactly. Oh.
All right, let's see what we got next on our list of stories here today. And this one actually happened late last week. Supreme Court vacates district court decision blocking enforcement of the Biden ghost gun rule. This is the, let's see here, I believe this is the Vanderstock ruling. And the Fifth Circuit still has this in front of them. The original judge issued the injunction against the ghost gun rule. Said you cannot enforce this. Fifth Circuit backed that up, said we're going to hear it, but we're going to let this injunction stand. We're going to keep the injunction in place. Supreme Court now has said no, you're not going to let that injunction stand. The Department of Justice can now enforce their ghost gun rule, but go ahead and hear the case. So I don't know. This is not a huge loss. It's a loss, but it's not a huge one. What's your take on this one, man?
Yeah, a little confusing at first. You're seeing the originally blocked, and then now being told it's not going to be blocked. But we want to hear that we don't want this case to take 3 years to come to fruition either. Let's get this case rolling, and let's see what's going to happen here. So I think maybe that's maybe that's how they addressed it, is rather than go through the nut roll of fighting the injunction, how about we just call the injunction blank for now, and let's put this in front of the court,
One of my biggest frustrations, and I understand why it happens, but my biggest frustration is that it takes so long for these things to get through courts.
Yes.
What I would love to see is that the Fifth Circuit decided Tuesday, Wednesday the Supreme Court takes it up. They hear it Thursday. You get to the decision on Monday. That'll never happen, but
yeah, because Paul, it takes us 3 months to get our affairs and orders here at home and with our farms and our cattle, and before we drive to DC and in the covered wagons and we get there and then we set up shop and then it takes several months to get dispatches across the country and
the Pony Express, yeah,
it's not 1789. You're right, Paul. it is 2023 and it's all digital and instant. I agree with you. There's no reason this shouldn't be next, click, boom, next, let's do this. They're right here. Everything's in front of us. Oh, you mean the client's not available to be seen in court? Well, let's get them on the phone, put them on the FaceTime. It's
Oh,
all
yeah.
right there.
Absolutely. You have to be in Antarctica in the dead of winter not to be able to. And even then, there are scientists that do Skype calls and all that with the outside world. But yeah, there's very little place in or around the planet Earth where you cannot be up in front of the Supreme Court at any specific time.
Yeah.
All right. And Mike Columbus, I got your comment. We'll get to that here in a little bit. Next story I want to get to. New York lawmakers want background checks and waiting periods for 3D printers. Just to this one is there's a law that they're working on in New York State where any 3D printer that could make parts or receivers for a firearm, they want a background check and a waiting period before you can pick it up. And oh, by the way, that's all of the 3D printers.
Yeah. Yeah, evidently this lawmaker there thinks that 3D printers are you got the ones where you can make just widgets around the house, and then you got the gun 3D printer. No, the technology on them now is they can all make gun parts, and many of them, most of them now. I mean, anything you buy now has got that capability, and everything there that is reasonable price, and that's where the panic really is probably coming in, Paul. I remember when 3D printers came out 10 years ago. I mean, if you wanted to make a paperclip, it was a $10,000 printer. Now you could get one to make, an upper receiver or a lower receiver for $1,000, less. So they're to panic. They're realizing that, oh my goodness, the common man can now be able to afford to make their own gun. Well, we must stop those rights right away.
Oh yeah. Well, and even beyond the upper and lower receiver, there are a lot of parts in that are smaller parts that could be readily and easily reproduced with a 3D printer using the really cheap ones, the $300 Amazon special. You can produce multiple parts for firearms on them, and let's face it, these are in schools, they're in libraries. What's going to prevent somebody from taking the file, taking it to their local library, and using the printer there? You're going to have to go through a background check before you get access to the computer room in the library now?
I saw one recently, and when you think of a printer, I think I like the old laser engravers. These big giant enclosed things, and you made them. This thing was like, it had 4 legs, and the, I don't know what you'd call it, the old spindle that moves back and forth, right? The printer piece.
Mm-hmm.
That was just suspended between the legs. There was no bottom to this, no top to this. It just printed right on any table and just started making this for you. It was like Star Trek kind of nonsense, and it was a $200 printer. This 3D printer, and this guy was making stuff. But trying to put this law into effect is where does it end, Paul? Okay, now 3D printers there, so I hate to think what my toolbox is going to be considered. Because I'm going to use my toolbox to put everything together with, right? God forbid they go after my drill press, because I can put holes and stuff with that, and
they've been doing it for a long time. Where do you think your 10-millimeter sockets go to?
Oh, if I knew that, you and I would both be 10-millimeter socket rich.
All right. Want to get this one in here real quick. Michael, I'll get to your other comment here in just a couple minutes, but follow-up comment from Mike. He says, you can't print a legal firearm, but the government can print worthless currency. And the more of it they print, the more worthless it becomes.
There you go. I wonder if I could print money on a 3D printer.
I'm
thinking gold, but can I make gold on a 3D printer?
Gold is an element, so I don't think so.
All right. Let me get back to legal. I'm thinking like a cartoon villain now.
Now, if you have a particle accelerator, on the other hand,
There we go.
you can really turn lead into gold. It's extremely slow, but it can be done.
Right. There you go.
Next one I got off of Ammo Land. This is a Lee Williams piece. Of course, Lee is the investigative journalist for Second Amendment Foundation. He writes a piece basically saying that the centerpiece of what he wrote is Mossad, Israeli security force, has put out a warning saying that Jews around the world in places like England, Toronto, Canada, Germany, France, New York, New York, Michigan, and Florida in the United States should be prepared to deal with Hamas attacks, according to information from Mossad. I would put them at least as credible as the CIA. Depending on how far politics has descended into the CIA, I don't honestly know. I know politics is deep in the FBI, but I would say I would trust Mossad and New York, Michigan, Florida, three very populous states. I'm glad that at least one of those states there's still considered there's still a free state, and that being Florida.
Yeah, we're mostly there. I'll give you out of those three for sure. Did you? I don't know, Paul, if you talked about this week. Did you talk about the Brooklyn councilwoman that got arrested at the protest up there?
That is not on the air yet. I have not.
Okay, so there's a Brooklyn councilwoman. Her name's Ina Vernikov.
Mm-hmm.
She's Jewish, and I'm going to go out and say with the name Vernikov, she's probably of Russian Jewish heritage. It's a KOV end on it. She went to a rally, and it was a pro-Hamas rally in Brooklyn down at the Brooklyn College. This was over the weekend. This was Friday. This Friday last week, the day of jihad. Remember, Hamas had declared for a worldwide jihad on the 13th against Jews everywhere. So Hamas went there and protested. Had this big pro-Palestinian, pro-Hamas group went there and had this big rally. There were Jewish students there. She went there to the rally in New York City. All right. Somebody got her on video with a butt of a gun sticking out of her waistband. All right. She got arrested. NYPD arrested her. Somebody got her picture. They posted it. He went down to the police department and surrendered herself. She has a permit to own the firearm. She does not have a permit to carry the firearm in New York because guess what? No one has a permit to carry a firearm in New York City because they continue to fight about the law. So here's a woman who just got told by Hamas that we're going to kill you. She just got told by the DHS secretary in America, be on the lookout for threats against you to kill you. New York said, the Supreme Court says you have the right to carry a gun here. The city of New York says we don't buy any of that. You're going to jail for carrying a gun.
Yeah.
Here's a woman that is at the center of all these threats, Paul, and she still ends up going to jail because the city of New York is ignoring the Bruin decision.
Absolutely, totally ridiculous. And I'm trying to think, if I remember right, she is a bit of a rhino, or maybe a unicorn is a better term. She is a gun-owning Republican that got elected in New York City.
In Brooklyn, and she's Jewish. Yes. Yeah. So she is you're right. She's a unicorn. It's probably the right thing. She's definitely not a rhino. She's a unicorn. All
right. Over on the Facebook side again, Mike is correcting us. He says that Ms. Vernikov has a license to carry a gun. I'm not familiar with New York law. I know they have.
The story I read. Yeah, I'm sorry. The story I read, and Mike may be right. Maybe there's more information out there. The story I read said she has the license to own, because remember in New York City, you have to have a permit to own a firearm.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a separate permit to carry concealed. Now, if she has that again, I apologize. I'm just going on the news stories that I've seen, but that's what I had before.
I'm familiar a little bit with the story. It did not run across my search for stories for today, but when I heard about it,
reminded me of that. Yeah. So.
When I heard about it, I remember hearing about it, I want to say Saturday or Sunday, when I was listening to Fox News Radio. And I remember that she, again, was a bit of a unicorn and that she is a Republican, a gun owner, and an unashamed gun owner that got elected in New York City. I think we ought to possibly put her up for Trump's VP.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. Yeah, something else. She's definitely, you know what? She's a Ukrainian immigrant, so the name makes sense. So I said it was probably Russian origin, which Ukrainians are all Russian names from their, the 90 years of occupation. But I'm trying to find the quote here on from the police department about what she had as far as permits.
Well,
said she turned in her permit, and they said it was a pistol. Anyway, so anyway, she's clearly a staunch opponent of Palestinian rallies. Especially when they go there to intimidate Jewish peoples at the Brooklyn College.
That rally was set to stir emotions, and it did.
Here's a statement from Mike. Here's the comment. There's one here that says, although the councilwoman has a concealed carry permit, she violated the recently passed city law that prohibits civilians from bringing firearms to protests. That was not in the original story I had, so thank you for the update, and I'm going to continue to check that because this story doesn't mention anything about the permit to own. So, it's one of those, like we tell Paul, you and I say all the time: do the research.
Yeah. I want to get the previous the comment from Michael that I've been waiting to get to because I wanted to make sure we got the stories we had in. Get to that one right now. We got just a couple minutes left here. What happened to the White House ghost cocaine and ghost laptop? Those fell out of the news cycle. They're still out there. I don't know that anything has moved other than I know Hunter is scheduled to be. He's been arraigned in. In California for tax fraud. He's been arraigned in Virginia, I believe, for tax fraud. And I think they're holding off on the gun charge, but I'm not entirely certain. That I don't know that one has been filed yet, although I know it's on the horizon. So what has happened with it? Really, not much.
It's confusing to say the least, right? Because you've got the attorney that was his attorney, but is now the special prosecutor. You've got the deals that were supposed to be made that didn't get made. You've got it's about the most convoluted track of legal lineage that I've ever seen. And you could read the same story, and it says different things twice. So he's charged with. But then he's not charged with, and it's difficult. I think maybe, Paul, that the ghost laptop and the ghost cocaine, they're going to go with the ghost gun and just go around on Halloween and scare people.
There you go. Let me ask before I do this, Mike. Have you got a couple minutes we can go over, Mike?
Oh yeah, listen, I'm good till Saturday at 3. So
okay, I'm not going to keep you that late. I will promise you that. This is going to take us overtime. Evening, Paul and Mike. So HD 4135/4420 4607 passed in the House in Massachusetts. frightening times here in the Northeast. This is one I honestly believe. Look, the people over at Gun Owners Action League in Massachusetts are putting up a tremendous fight on this one. I don't think it's a fight. Ultimately, they're going to win in the legislature, but they're doing a darn good job of fighting. I think this is going to have to be won in the courts. What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, agreed. And boy, how about some horrible middle of the night kind of stuff that they did here with this as well? These are some draconian, restrictions put on firearm owners. And you're right, Paul. And we know, many of the players there, and I wish I had the opportunity to go up there with them over the past week. But it's like sweeping back the tide, with the broom. You understand it? They're doing a great job, but it's not enough. And I really think you're right. This is going to have to be one of them, going to court things. And we already know that half of this is illegal according to Bruin, but it's okay. We're going to continue to pass it. So. Oh
yeah, because we don't have to use our money to fight it. We'll use taxpayer money, which a good amount it comes from gun owners to fight to suppress gun owners.
I keep saying, I'll preach it till the last days. We need to get rid of absolute immunity for politicians. They should be under the same standard as law enforcement with qualified immunity. What's that mean, folks? As long as they don't break the law, they have immunity. And guess what? Passing an unconstitutional law or a law to be unconstitutional is illegal. And they should be held personally responsible for that and financially responsible for that when they have to fight it. You do that, Paul, and all of this, I know I wasn't supposed to, but I did it for the children. That'll stop tomorrow. Okay? As soon as they got to use their own wallet to defend themselves, they're going to be sitting up there in their seats in the House or the Senate, wherever they are, and go, nope, I'm not doing that. Not coming out of my pocket. Nope.
Let me give you an example of where you're right about that. New Mexico recently it was just before we went to Gun Rights Policy Conference. Governor Grisham issued an executive order outlawing the carrying of guns in Albuquerque and some surrounding areas around there. And previous year, they had gotten rid of qualified immunity. So one after another, police chief and sheriffs have said, I'm not doing this. I'm not backing this. I'm not enforcing this. She had to walk it back. That's what the loss of qualified immunity gets you.
Yep. Exactly right.
Excuse me. They lost the absolute immunity, and so
they got qualified immunity appointed to them. Yeah. From absolute immunity. Yes. Yeah.
All righty, man.
Because their position as executives, they were considered police officers and not politicians. Even though they were elected, they didn't get qualified or absolute immunity as an elected official. They got law enforcement immunity as qualified immunity. Yeah, absolutely right. While I'm sitting here, Paul, I found a second story that says that Councilwoman Vernikoff had a concealed weapon permit. She got it in September. She was one of the first to apply and get it. It took several months to get it. So great looking out by the listeners or by the viewers there. Excellent. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much. We have some of the smartest people that watch us live on a daily basis. And their Google foo has to be just amazing to come up with this stuff so quick. So
yeah.
All right. Well, I think we're going to go ahead and set this one aside today. As I said, we are over time, but Mike, good to talk with you again. Good to work with you again. We're going to be doing this every other Wednesday now.
Yes.
So, well, I lied. One last comment on our way out. Michael says, as Biden said, the Second Amendment is not absolute. It is true. He said that. However, I do believe the Second Amendment is absolute. All right.
Yeah.
We're going to step out of here. Thank you, everybody who's watching. Podcast listeners, thank you for listening. Do consider come joining us Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday, 7 p.m. Central Time, when we bring you more Polite Society news. Thanks again, everybody, and we will see you next time. All right, man. We are clear.
Cool. What about the Polite Society news bullet?
Nah, I don't want anything with the bullet being in there. I don't want to
Okay,
tease them.
gotcha.
Second Amendment. I don't know if you heard this. Second Amendment Foundation knows a few lawyers.
Yeah, they one or two.
So I'm going to
I don't know how
stay.
many copyright lawyers they know. They know some gun lawyers, but you know, they
Yeah.
probably couldn't help me get out of it. You know.
Yeah.
So what happened? What happened? What's the story behind the story?
They never told me. They just said we're not renewing your contract. It's anyway, it
I've seen a
happened
lot
during
of-
a board meeting, is what I was told.
Yeah. See, well, I've seen a lot of. That's weird. Didn't Holly just get elected to the board also?
She did. This could have happened before she ever got there, and I don't know Holly well enough to ask her. I know some other board members, but I'm not gonna. Hey, look, what's in the past is in the past, and believe it or not, I'm making more money now
Yeah.
than I was as a full-time SAF employee. I was paid a stupid low amount of money to do what I did.
Yeah. And listen, I mean, you know, thanks for Alan for being there when you got told you couldn't be a truck driver anymore. You had somebody there to at least throw you a little bit of a lifeline, you know?
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah.
you know, grateful for that, but like I said, I've seen a lot more FPC movement over to SAF recently. Obviously, they're following Adam, you know, to come over there. They want to work with him because they worked with him before. But you know, just man up and say, listen, we used the money elsewhere for other people. You know?
Well, you and me in the wall. The guy they hired to replace me, $120,000 a year, roughly 3 times what they were paying me, and he didn't know how to convert a video.
Yeah, that's like hiring the IT guy and he never owned a computer. You know?
Yeah. Well, my abacus board over here.
Yeah, exactly. So tell me about the wreck on the way home. When you guys were almost home.
Yeah, we were 500 miles away, and we were 2-lane road in Nebraska, and just too little. I wasn't even speeding, and the speed limit was 65. I want to say I was doing 68, and come up over a rise here, 2 deer in the middle of the roadway. Missed one of them. Just got the final estimate back from the body shop and the insurance company, and it's going to be $5,800 to replace the damage. I hope I have my car back in a couple weeks. Right now, I'm stuck with a Dodge Durango rental car.
Insurance covers that though.
Oh yeah.
Okay, good.
So that's just a annoyance is all that is.
Right.
I've got
Did you get some beer?
No. It wasn't instantly fatal to the deer. It was able to hobble off into the cornfield, and I wasn't going to chasing after a deer. And I honestly didn't.
Right.
I had electronics equipment. I didn't have anything to take care of the deer with me, other than I was armed. I could have ended its misery, but it wasn't going to fix my misery, so I was going to let it suffer.
There you go. So, remember when Alexander Rubian got in his motorcycle crash?
Yeah.
Okay. Remember, it was a deer came out of nowhere, hit him. He was on the bike though, and Alexander was in a coma for 2 or 3 weeks when that happened.
Yeah, he was messed up bad.
He really was, and then he kind of, I asked, he let it know, and he goes that he killed the deer. And I was like, well, you're like the world's worst vegan then, aren't you? I mean, you're out there just killing deer and you're a vegan. And he's like, will you shut up? You know, he goes, of all my friends, you're the one that won't give me shit about that. You know? And it's like, well, stop killing deers, you vegan deer killer. So,
Yeah. And I just the most annoying thing about it was we hit the deer. I pulled forward another 100 feet, pulled over to the side of the road, and put the car in park. Shut the car off. Went to
Right.
go inspect what was wrong. And there are so many electronic things going on with this car, and enough sensors got jostled. The car would not restart, would not shift out of park, would not do anything.
So you're
And
just there.
yeah,
Damn it.
so I couldn't even. If I wouldn't have shut the car off, I think I might have been able to drive it back to the 35 miles to where the North Platte was the nearest city. I think I might have
Okay.
been able to drive it back there instead of a $325 tow bill.
Oof. They is it still there? Are they fixing it there, or did they get it home?
Yeah, they're fixing it there. I have USAA for insurance, and they want it that it has to be fixed in the same state where the damage happened. So
That makes sense. Okay.
yeah. So anyway, man, I am
Any
gonna
other-
let you go. I gotta go eat some dinner, and then I've got to be to work in about 2.5 hours.
Yeah. What's the new job?
I work overnights at a gas station.
Okay, that you told me, but you said you and Susan were working at the same place. I didn't know she worked.
Yeah, she works the exact same store.
Okay.
They're building the store as we speak. It's 1 mile that away, and while they're building that store, they're having us to go to other stores and work while ours is being finished.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay.
So
Well, excellent. Excellent. Tell her I said hi, and we'll talk again soon.
sounds good, man.
All right, man. Good show tonight. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, thank you, sir. We'll catch you later, man.
Okay, see ya.
Bye.